In today's video, we're going over every single week 4 game for fantasy football. This is the first time we're making a video like this, so if you do enjoy it, let me know by hitting that like and the subscribe, and it'll become part of our weekly schedule. We're going to start right off the bat with the Thursday night football, Cardinals versus Seahawks. And I think a lot of people are sleeping on Trey Benson. He's coming off the waiver wire for your fantasy football team, but with James Conner out for the season, this is an amazing place to start him. We see the Seahawks matchup. We're accompanied by the Walter Picks app, by the way. If you want to get this for your team, grab it in the profile with code NOBS. You can see the Seahawks ranked 30th against running backs. We can go into the matchup tab, which is one of my favorite things about this app. You see Christian McCaffrey, great pass-catching running back, dominated in week 1 with 9 receptions. Week 2, Jaylen Warren dominated. There's also 7 receptions between the running backs. Week 3 against the Saints, they didn't do as well, the running backs, but overall, we've seen pass-catching running backs dominate the Seahawks team. So I think Trey Benson should be going in the starting lineup. One of the sits, though, for the Cardinals, I believe, is Marvin Harrison Jr. So far, he has been struggling to get the football. Week 1, he was great. He had the touchdown. He had 71 yards. But since then, he has not been good. In Seattle, they are the worst against the running back. They're the best against the wide receiver. We see this is the toughest matchup possible. We scroll over and we see his targets really have not been that strong. Six targets, 5 targets, 6 targets. So I'm going to sit Marvin Harrison Jr. in this game. I'm also looking to sit Kyler Murray if you can. We'll just check Kyler Murray real quick. Then we'll jump over to the Seahawks side of the ball because you're definitely starting Trey McBride, of course. But Kyler really hasn't been that good so far. He's had a pass touchdown in every game, but the yards haven't been there. The pass attempts haven't been there. The rush attempts have been pretty good. I do like that. He's probably going to rush maybe a little bit more in this game with James Conner out. That is the real upside here, but I'd like to see it. This schedule is absolutely brutal. So this is a player, when he has that first big game, I would trade him away. But for this week, I'm going to keep him on the bench. We're going to head right over to the Seahawks side of the football. And really, I guess the question is, do you start Torrey Horton? We'll go to Torrey Horton here because you're definitely starting JSN. You're definitely starting Kenneth Walker. Torrey Horton, though, did have a huge game in week 3. He did have that receiving touchdown. I would say I'd sit him on the bench in this game, but if you do have him, I think he's a great player to have for your team. He could be interesting in DFS lineups as well, since he'll be very cheap. I think Cooper Kupp is a bench as well. So let's jump to our next game for my Steelers in Ireland against the Vikings. We'll start with Jordan Mason here. I think he's a must start in this game. I know some people may be having other good starts available, but Jordan Mason, for me, is a great start. Obviously, week 3, he crushed 2 touchdowns. Pittsburgh has been struggling. I'll tell you guys, I've been watching every single game. I'll go to the matchup tab again and show you exactly how much they've been struggling. Week 1, Breece Hall ate him up as well as Justin Fields. Week 2, Kenneth Walker ate him up. Week 3, they caused a lot of fumbles. That's what caused Ramondre and Henderson and Gibson to all do pretty bad in this game. Henderson, they all split the carries because everyone kept fumbling, losing 2 fantasy points every time. But overall, the running backs have done a good job against the Steelers. So Jordan Mason is a must start. I think another guy that you can start in this game that's been pretty much unstartable throughout the season is TJ Hawkinson. With Carson Wentz at quarterback, I like him a lot more. The Steelers just gave up 2 touchdowns to Hunter Henry. The one player that a lot of people are probably asking about for the Vikings, though, is Jordan Addison. And I do think I would sit Addison in this game. Obviously, he has not played yet. The Steelers are kind of middle of the road against the wide receivers. It's his first game back. So Hawkinson, I think that he is a good start. Jefferson, of course, Mason. That's a lot of people we're already kind of putting in our lineups. So I would try to see where Jordan Addison's going to fit in before I lock him in. And then over to the Steelers side of the ball, Jaylen Warren, obviously a must start. He's been crushing. But I probably would sit DK Metcalf this week. So far, he's been okay. He has 2 touchdowns and still hasn't scored over 13 fantasy points so far. So I'd probably sit him. I think Aaron Rodgers is going to receive a lot of pressure from this Minnesota defense. They're going to hit him in the screen game, and the Vikings players will be ready for that and try to sit on that, maybe try to go for that pick 6. So the Vikings defense I'm starting. I'm sitting the Steelers defense. I'm sitting DK Metcalf. Really the only Steelers player I would even consider starting this game, and I think he's a good start, is Jaylen Warren. The rest have to stay on the bench. Our next game is Commanders versus Falcons. And I did want to start with talking Marcus Mariota. So far, he's played 1 game, 20 fantasy points. I'll head over to his game log here. He had a passing touchdown, a rushing touchdown, the rush yards. I think you can start him if you're really hurting at quarterback. If you had Jane Daniels and you're like, I don't know who to go with, I think either one is a good start this week. The other person I'm interested in starting is Deebo Samuel if Terry McLaurin misses this game. With Marcus Mariota, I think he's a little bit less reliable. We saw week 1 and 2 with Jane Daniels. He was awesome. week 3 against the Raiders, who are pretty bad against the pass. He only had the 2 receptions. He wasn't out there too much, had the 3 targets. So overall, not the best game for Deebo Samuel. They didn't really need him too bad in this game. Let's just be honest with that. But still, I would bench him this week unless Terry McLaurin is out. Then he's a little bit more of a consideration. Same goes for Zach Ertz. I don't think you start any of the running backs. Chris Rodriguez, who started the game, he had 22 snaps. He had 11 rush attempts, and he had those early and often. So if this game against Atlanta stays a little closer, we're going to see a lot more of Chris Rodriguez Jr. I don't think you can start any of the Commanders' running backs. And for the Falcons, we're definitely starting Drake London. We're definitely starting Bijan Robinson. And Kyle Pitts, I think, is a good start as well. So we'll check out London real quick, and then we'll move on to the next game. London, I've been getting some start questions about him because so far he has been struggling a little bit. But with the targets, I'm not too worried. We see the snap is great. The route percentage is elite. Around 90% is absolutely elite for fantasy football. And the targets have been great as well. So with this kind of volume and this kind of talent, they also did fire one of their offensive coaches. When you fire a coach, you're going to change things up. You're going to make sure your best players get the ball. So I am going to start Drake London this week. Our next game is Bills versus Saints. I think you have to start Chris Olave with the volume he's been getting. You see he's out there for that 90%, 100% of routes out there. The targets have been elite 13, 10, and 14. Now, they're not the highest quality targets, but he's still catching a lot of passes and getting decent yardage. So I think this is a great start for this game. The one player I am scared about is Alvin Kamara. We'll check him out in this game, and I think you can bench him. Honestly, I really think he's worth a bench spot this week. Week 1, he was okay. Week 2, he was okay. But you look at the receptions. 2 receptions in week 1, 1 reception in week 3 against the Seahawks. That was a pretty terrible performance there. The snaps, he was out there. He just wasn't getting the job done. Not running enough routes. Rush attempts are good, but we really want Alvin Kamara for his receiving upside. So I would bench him in this game against the Bills. They are going to put pressure on. And again, this Seahawks game was weird. The Seahawks got out to a huge lead, but he still had 18 rush attempts. They didn't even pass that much against the Seahawks. So I would be benching Alvin Kamara. And for the Bills, I'm going to sit everybody except the obvious starts, Josh Allen and James Cook. I do want to talk Dalton Kincaid, though, because he is an interesting tight end option. He's been good so far, 14, 7, 17 points in a good matchup against the Saints here. You can start him. He's getting enough volume, 6 targets a week for a tight end on a team that scores a lot of points. So Dalton Kincaid is also, I think, a good tight end start in this game. Next game is Browns versus Lions. And Quidshot Judkins, he has to go in your starting lineup. If you're worried about him, just don't be. He had 94 yards and a touchdown against the Green Bay Packers. That is one of the best defenses they will face the entire season. This is also a guy I'm trying to trade for. Look at this playoff schedule. Chicago, Buffalo, Pittsburgh. This guy's a guy you have to trade for right now. He goes in lineups. Judy, on the other hand, I would sit. He just hasn't been good. 11, 9, 2, 1 catch in week 3 against the Packers. And I know he's facing an easier matchup in Detroit, but their defense is growing. They have a new defensive coordinator. They've been getting better each and every week. They did a great job against the Ravens in week 3. So I'm going to sit Jerry Jeudy, sitting Joe Flacco. I'm sitting both tight ends if you can. I'd rather start Fannin. But on the Lions side of the ball, Jameson Williams is a sit for me. Last week, just not enough volume. He's had 2 receptions in the last 2 games, so I think you got to sit him till he starts to see more volume. And against Cleveland, they may not need to pass a crazy amount, but I'm also going to sit David Montgomery in this game. I know he was so awesome in week 3, but week 1, I think this is closer to what we're going to see. Look at this matchup tab. I want to show you guys how good running backs have been against the Browns. Week 1, 13 points. That would be okay. Week 2, he shut down Derrick Henry, 2.3 points. Week 3, Josh Jacobs had 12.4 points with all of the work. Now, Dave Montgomery, he's splitting with Jahmyr Gibbs. I'm still starting Jahmyr Gibbs, but Dave Montgomery, I think, needs to go on the bench with how good this Browns defense is against the run. And then I'm also going to sit Jared Goff. This is the big concern here. Jared Goff has too many rushing touchdowns from his team. Week 1, 11 points. Week 3, 12 points. Obviously, they crushed Chicago, but this is scary. 1 pass touchdown. With the way that this team runs the ball, they are trying to run first in the red zone. Cleveland, amazing run defense. They may need to pass more in this game. I'll put my hand up on that one. But Jared Goff, especially with all the trick plays as well, maybe Amon-Ra St. Brown throws a touchdown. We don't know. I'm going to sit Jared Goff in this game until we start to see some more consistency. We're just not going to see it with how good the running backs are. So while he's great for the team, he's not so good for fantasy football. Our next game is Patriots versus Panthers. And I want to start with Tet McMillan, who is questionable for this game. As long as he does play, we are good to go. But I think I am going to start him. He's been having some elite route rates in that 90% range. That's exactly what we look for. That's the marker of an elite player. 9 targets, 10 targets, 8 targets. And this week, he gets a great matchup against the Patriots. We'll see that the Patriots have been struggling. Week 1, Trey Tucker, Jacoby Myers. Week 2, Hill and Waddle. Week 3, Metcalf and Austin. They've had startable wide receivers every single week. I am going to start Ted McMillan if he plays. That's pretty much it for the Panthers. I would maybe start Chuba Hubbard, though. He's been pretty solid so far. Just a bad week 3 against Atlanta. But overall, I like the matchup against the Patriots, so I'd start Hubbard as well. Honestly, for the Patriots, Hunter Henry's been absolutely eating. Got to start him. But Stephon Diggs, Kayshon Boutte, Ramondre Stevenson, Trevion Henderson, Antonio Gibson, I don't think we can start anybody. Hopefully, we get some clarity in the backfield. I'm personally rooting for Trevion Henderson to take over. But with these wide receivers being so up and down, Hunter Henry taking the touchdowns, I'm starting him. I'm starting Drake May because I think they will score. We just don't know who's going to score the touchdowns. Drake May also has that rushing upside. I think everybody else has to be on the bench. One of the games of the week here, we got the Giants versus the Chargers and Jackson Dart in his first game. I personally think that this is a very risky start. There's some rushing upside. There's also some upside to the Chargers not really having film on him. He's going to play differently than Russell Wilson. That gives the Giants a little bit of an advantage. And I do think this is better for Malik Neighbors. I think it's better for pretty much everybody else in this offense. Russell Wilson was just not it. You can definitely start Cam Skattebo as well. He was absolutely elite in week 3 against a tough Chiefs team. And we see the 6 receptions. That's what I love the most. Now, Jackson Dart may run a little bit more, may take a little bit more of this work away, especially if it's a scramble drill. He may not get those receptions, those dump offs if Jackson Dart is running. But I still think Skattebo is a great start. Malik Neighbors is a start as well. Pretty much be it from the Giants side of the ball. But on the Charger side, I think you can start everybody. Justin Herbert, amazing start. Quentin Johnston, you got to start him. Keenan Allen, you got to start him. And I do want to talk about Ladd McConkey because I've got an interesting stat for you guys. Some of the research I do is I look at some snap percentage data. And Ladd McConkey was the only Chargers wide receiver that was on the field for 100% of dropbacks in week 3. He's going to get there, guys. The snaps, the snap percentage, the route rate, that's all at an elite level. These targets aren't bad. Justin Herbert targets in a team that scores a lot of points. So I am going to start Ladd McConkey in this game. He will bounce back. This is a great opportunity against the Giants. I also like Omarion Hampton. I know some people may be like, it's just 1 week. It was a great week. Plus, Najee Harris got hurt. So obviously, that's not part of the great week. Omarion Hampton's week was amazing for fantasy football. And with the Najee Harris injury, it's all going to be his work moving forward. Next game is Eagles-Bucks. By the way, guys, if you're still here, make sure you hit that like and subscribe to see this video next week. Plus, drop your start-sit questions in the comments. I'll get to every single one. And we're going to talk A.J. Brown here. He's someone that I actually said to start in week 3, even though he did have a bad week 1. In week 2, because I figured the breakout's got to come at some point, in the Rams I saw as a good opportunity. So really happy about that one. I'm going to start him again against Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay dealing with some injuries, but Tampa Bay also has that great run defense. And when you have a great run defense, shutting Saquon down a little bit more, that's going to open up players like A.J. Brown to have a great week. A.J. Brown is a good start. I'm not huge on Devonta Smith. I think you need the touchdown. He did have one last week, but I think you need the touchdown. I trust A.J. Brown a little bit more for that. I'm still starting Saquon. Goddard is an okay start. Definitely starting Hurts. So most of the Eagles are starts, but I do think I'm not too scared about A.J. Brown this week. On the Bucs side of the ball, Chris Godwin was a full participant in practice, so that's a little bit scary for Igbuka, but I don't think too scary. I think he's a good start, especially with Mike Evans out. Now, I'm going to sit Godwin. We're obviously going to start Bucky. Baker Mayfield, a little bit more of a risky start against the Eagles. So if you have someone like Daniel Jones or Justin Herbert, I would probably start them over Baker Mayfield. Other than that, you can lock Baker into your lineup. On to the Texans versus the Titans, the battle of the 0-3. I want to start with Alec Eomanor. He's been Cam Ward's favorite red zone target. I think he's a guy you have to at least add off the waiver wires. He has been startable the last 2 weeks, and this is by far the best matchup the Titans have had so far. They started with Denver, the Rams, and Indianapolis. Absolute gauntlet for Cam Ward as a rookie. I think this week, Ridley, he's a scary start, but if you have to, you could put him into lineups. I'm not excited about it. I would prefer to sit him. Same with Alec Eomanor, but either one of these guys could have a good week. It is a much better matchup than we've seen in the past. I also like Pollard, but the player I really want to talk about in this game that may be on waiver wires in your leagues is Woody Marks. And we're going to take a look here, and this is why you want to have the Walter Picks app for some of the stats we're going to look at. You can get that in the profile with code NOBS. You see his snap percentage has increased every single week. 11%, 26%, 47%. He's been looking good with the touches as well. So if Woody Marks is available on waivers, I would definitely add him. That also means you need to sit Nick Chubb and try to trade him away if you can immediately. Nico Collins, great start. I'm not starting CJ Stroud. So that's pretty much it for this game. Not super fantasy relevant. Another one of the games of the week is the Colts versus the Rams. Both these teams looking amazing so far. And I want to start with Davante Adams because he's been great so far. He's on my must draft list. Really happy about that. But I do think I want to sit him in week 4. We head over to the matchup tab. Again, huge advantage for you to have this over your league mates, guys. Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, bad weeks. Courtland Sutton, under 2 points. We had Alec Amenor be the guy in week 3, but Calvin Ridley under 4 points. The wide receiver 1 for these teams is being eliminated. And I don't really see how you can do that to Puka Nacua. He's a slot guy, operates in the short yardage. Very difficult to take him away. So the guy to take away would be Davante Adams. Plus, he's scoring a lot of his points on a couple catches. 3 catches, 4 catches. I think I would try to sit him this week. Next week, I think we'll be back in action against San Francisco. But I'm going to do a spot sit of Davante Adams this week. I'm obviously starting Kieran and Puka Nacua in this game. Try to sit Matt Stafford if you can. On the other side of the ball, I'm going to start Daniel Jones. Last week was a little bit weird. I think he needs a little bit more competition in order to have a better week because they just start off the game with a pick 6. He just didn't need to do as much. You saw his pass yardage was much less. His rush yardage, not that great. No rushing touchdown. Pass attempts, his lowest of the year. Jonathan Taylor dominated. I think Michael Pittman Jr. I think we're starting Tyler Warren as well. So most of these Colts, Spencer Strader, by the way, the kicker, amazing add off the waiver wire this week. If he's still there, add him too. Gotta throw him out there. He's my number 3 kicker of the week. But this is definitely a game worth watching where a lot of the players are going to be starts. Our next game is Jaguars versus 49ers. A pretty good defense. The Jaguars have also been looking pretty good this year, but Brian Thomas Jr. has not. But we go over to his targets. They haven't been that bad. 7, 12, 6. The route rate hasn't been that good, but I think I would sit him this week if you can. You may have some other good options. We're going to talk about some of those other good options, or maybe some of the guys we already talked about in this video. I would try to sit Brian Thomas Jr. I think just let him go to the bench till he has his first big week. Let's have him stop hurting our team actively. We probably have people on the bench that have been outperforming him on a weekly basis, so I would hit Brian Thomas Jr. We also see Parker Washington. I just want to kind of show you guys exactly why I'm sitting Brian Thomas Jr. When we add Parker Washington, we see last week he had 11 targets. When Parker Washington is getting 11 targets, more than Brian Thomas Jr., we know there's an issue with this pass game. Travis Hunter, you can drop, by the way. He's playing way too much defense. Overall, on this Jaguar side, ETN is really the only start. You could go Brenton Strange if you're in a tight end pinch. I would look to other options like Hunter Henry, who was on waiver wire this week, but not much going for the Jaguars. On the other side of the ball, we have pretty much everybody is questionable. I don't really care whoever plays in this game. I'm playing Jennings, I'm playing Purdy, I'm playing Christian McCaffrey. Of course, every San Francisco 49er, including their kicker, Eddie Pinheiro, is a start as well. Lock in your 49ers. Get them into your lineup. I like this matchup against the Jaguars. The Jaguars have been pretty good, but I also think there's plenty of opportunity here, so I'm starting pretty much every 49ers player. Another great matchup this week, Chiefs versus Ravens. Both these teams 1 and 2, and the Ravens can kind of thank Derrick Henry for that, because week 1, they definitely should have beaten the Bills, but Derrick Henry had a costly fumble. Week 3 against the Lions, the game was in reach, costly fumble. So Derrick Henry definitely struggling in that area. He's also been struggling for fantasy football. If you have other good options like Trey Benson, you may even be able to sit Derrick Henry this week. I know that's kind of crazy, but I have this guy in a couple leagues, and he just doesn't look good. He got stuffed on the goal line several times. They're looking for other options in this team as well. He didn't play a lot of the second half. I am worried about Derrick Henry. We go to his rush attempts in this game. He had not very good snaps, less than 50% of the snaps. He only had 12 rushing attempts as well. This is a guy you don't have to start. I'm just giving you permission, guys. You don't have to start Derrick Henry. I'm pretty much not starting any Ravens player except Lamar Jackson. Again, you can start Henry. Of course you can if you have to. But the Chiefs have a good rush defense. They're going to be trying to punch out that ball. And if he fumbles again, guys, he may just not play that much. Looking at the data, ignoring the name, I'm telling you, you can sit Derrick Henry this week if you have other great options like J.K. Dobbins. If you have options like Trey Benson, I would be sitting Derrick Henry this week. The rest of the Ravens, of course, I'm not starting. Maybe Mark Andrews, if you want to, is a little bit risky. You can go for it. He did have a good week last week, but I'd like to see one more week of involvement. But if you're stuck at tight end, he's definitely a high upside option. I don't love the way Kelsey's been looking lately. The running back room is a mess. The wide receivers with Worthy potentially coming back. Worthy was a full participant. I'd like to sit him as well. The only person I'm starting is Patrick Mahomes. In this game, the main person I'm looking at on each side of the ball, which is crazy for two teams that may score a lot of points, is the quarterbacks. Mahomes, Lamar, you got to start them. Maybe Derrick Henry's the one exception there, but if you have other good options, I'd bench him too. Bears and Raiders. Caleb Williams has been amazing so far. Right now, quarterback 3. I think you have to lock him in your lineup with a great matchup this week against the Raiders. Rome Odunze, great start as well. DJ Moore, I would lean more towards the bench just because he hasn't been super involved. Luther Burden, I would bench. DeAndre Swift, I would bench as well. The Raiders have a good rush defense, or at least teams are beating them using the pass instead. On the Raiders side of the ball, this is another top-tier running back that I'm okay with benching. This is the week you have to do good against the Bears. Now for the Raiders, Ashton Genty. This is another player like Derrick Henry, first-round pick. I think you can lean towards benching. So far, he hasn't been worth a starting spot. 12 points against the Patriots, who struggle against running backs. 7.4, 6.3. This is his best matchup of the year, though. So if you're like, hey, I drafted him, I'm sticking with him, I don't have that many other good options, yeah, you can play him against Chicago and hope he bounces back. But what we've seen so far is a terrible offensive line, and I would prefer to sit him, if possible, against the Bears. Our next game, another game of the week, Packers, now with Micah Parsons, versus the Cowboys, now without Micah Parsons, and I'm really scared for Dak Prescott. You know this is going to be the photo on the front of SportsCenter, front of ESPN. I'm going to sit Dak Prescott because of it. He hasn't been good so far, and this is obviously probably the worst matchup he's had this entire season. And then we also look at his receivers. I'm going to start Pickens. I'm going to start Jake Ferguson over everybody. I don't care if you have Trey McBride. I think Ferguson has to be the play. He had 9 receptions in week 2. He had 13 receptions in week 3 with CeeDee Lamb out. Remember that, guys. That's another reason I want to sit Dak. But 14 targets here. Such a huge target share for a team that's going to need to pass in this game. Jake Ferguson, an amazing start this week. I think a must start. And look at the schedule. It is so easy for quite a time for Jake Ferguson. So you're going to continue to get value out of this guy and locking this guy into your lineup. On the Packers side of the ball, really the only person I want to start is Josh Jacobs. I think he's going to have a great week. Tucker Kraft, you can start as well. He's had some ups and downs throughout the season. Week 3, he was dealing with a little bit of that knee injury. So I do think you can start him against Dallas. They definitely need some pass catchers in this game. Josh Jacobs. And Matthew Golden is the one scary player. But I want to look at Golden here. And again, using the Walter Picks app to our advantage. Again, you can get that in the profile, guys. Is his snap percentage. So every single week, we see week 1, 47%. Week 2, 58%. Week 3, 70%. He's growing every single week. So if you do want to take a shot on a player this week with a good matchup, I think Matthew Golden could be actually a good start this week against the Cowboys. This could be his breakout game. So that's where I lean with Matthew Golden. On to our 2 Monday night games. And by the way, guys, if you haven't yet, make sure you hit that like and subscribe if you want to see this video next week. We got Breece Hall of the Jets. And I honestly am leaning towards sitting him if you can. Week 1 against the Steelers, we talked about them, not so good, but against Buffalo, Tampa Bay, not the best. Miami is awful on defense, so that is your one upside. He did have 4 receptions last week as well, but I'm just not excited about the opportunity here for Breece Hall. It is a good matchup, and I do think you can play him, but if you do have some other options like J.K. Dobbins, like I said, Trey Benson, like I said, I'd probably play over Breece Hall. Jordan Mason as well. Quidshot Junkins, I'd play over Breece Hall. So he's a fine start, top 24 start for sure. But there are going to be teams out there where he just doesn't make the cut because we have other players with other good options. But then we look at Garrett Wilson. You got to start him. On the Dolphins side of the ball, I think Hill is the main start. Obviously, Achane, you're starting as well. But Tyreek Hill's been pretty good after that first game. You know, the Colts, they take away the number 1 wide receiver. But since then, New England and Buffalo, he's been solid. I would play him against the Jets. I know Sauce may be on him, but they'll find ways to get him the ball. So I'm still going to play Tyreek. I'm not excited about Waddle. I'd probably sit Waddle in this game. I'd sit Tua in this game. So it's Achane and Tyreek Hill as your main starts for the Dolphins. Final game of the week, we have this in shambles Bengals with Jake Browning at quarterback with probably the worst possible matchup. After last week, it doesn't get any easier facing the Broncos defense. I think Jamar Chase is really the only guy that you could possibly think about starting on this Bengals team. I'm not going to play Chase Brown. He is heading to my bench this week. He's been terrible in the yards per carry. Denver's going to be rough. The Denver Broncos defense is going to eat the Bengals alive. We did see a decent snap percentage, route percentage, not too bad on the targets as well for a player like Jamar Chase. So I still think you can start him. But if you have some amazing wide receivers that have been like Quentin Johnston, you may want to start over. Jamar Chase is not a must start for me this week with this terrible matchup and how they've been playing. Again, last week he had under 10 fantasy points. I would not be surprised to see around there this week. And then for the Broncos side of the ball, I think you really want to start everybody. Dobbins, I think, has been earning his role. He's been a great start so far. Elite production up to this level every single week, around 15 points. Dobbins, he's probably going to score another touchdown in this game. I think Dobbins is a great start. Would start him over Jamar Chase. I think Cortland Sutton as well is a great start. Bo Nix, a great start. I think you want to start pretty much everybody you can in this game. That's our game-by-game recap. Drop your start-sit questions in the comments. I'm going to answer every single one. And make sure you like and subscribe to see this video every single week.